Welcome to Monk's Moon Temple. Have you ever had one of those moments, where you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing? Maybe you're sitting at a dinner with friends, laughter all around, the food is perfect, the conversation is light. Or perhaps you've just achieved something you've worked towards for years, a degree, a promotion, a down payment on a home. And in the middle of it, a tiny, quiet voice from somewhere deep inside asks, is this it? Is this really all there is? It's an unnerving feeling. It feels like a betrayal of the moment. You quickly push it down, tell yourself you're being ungrateful, and reach for another glass of wine or scroll through your phone to distract yourself. But the question lingers, doesn't it? It's a shadow that follows the brightest days. It's the subtle, persistent hum of dissatisfaction beneath the surface of our busy, accomplished lives. We are told from the moment we can understand language that the purpose of this whole thing, this life, is to be happy. We build our entire civilization around this premise. Our economies are designed to give us more pleasure, more convenience, more choice. Our social structures encourage us to find a partner who will make us happy, to raise children who will bring us joy, to pursue a career that will give us fulfillment. The pursuit of happiness is practically a cultural mandate. It's written into the very fabric of modern society. And yet, look around. Look at the soaring rates of anxiety and depression, even in the wealthiest nations. Look at the epidemic of loneliness. Look at the midlife crises, the burnout, the quiet desperation that so many people carry in their hearts. It seems the more we chase happiness, the more it eludes us, like a mirage in the desert. The closer we get, the further it recedes. So, what if we've been asking the wrong question? What if the purpose of life isn't to be happy at all? What if happiness, as we understand it, is merely a signpost, a side effect, and not the destination? This is not some new age, feel-good philosophy. This is a hard-nosed, psychological investigation into the human condition, guided by one of the most profound thinkers in human history. To understand this, we need to go back 2,500 years to northern India, to a man who had everything you could possibly want, and who walked away from it all because he realized that having everything was not the same as being free. This man, who would become known as the Buddha, didn't set out to start a religion. He was a scientist of the mind. He conducted a relentless experiment on himself. And his core discovery was this: the purpose of life is not to achieve a state of perpetual happiness, but to understand and bring about the end of suffering. Now, that might sound like a grim, pessimistic take on existence. But I promise you, by the end of our time together tonight, you'll see it as the most hopeful and liberating message ever spoken. We're going to peel back the layers of this ancient wisdom, not as a theological dogma, but as a practical, actionable guide for living in the 21st century. We'll look at it through the lens of modern psychology, through the stories of ordinary people facing extraordinary inner challenges, and through a path of training that you can start walking right now, from the comfort of your own home. This is an exploration. A calm, deep, reflective journey into the heart of what it means to be alive. So, settle in. Get comfortable. Let your breath slow down. And let's begin. Let me tell you about a woman I'll call Sarah. By every external measure, Sarah had built the life that most people only dream about. She was a partner at a prestigious corporate law firm in New York City. Her office sat on the 47th floor with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire Manhattan skyline. She had a six-figure salary, a beautiful apartment in the West Village, a wardrobe that could make anyone envious, and the respect of everyone in her field. She worked brutal hours. 14-hour days, weekends at the office, missed birthdays and dinners, but she told herself it was all worth it. She was building her castle. She was climbing the ladder. She was winning. Then came her biggest career victory. After months of preparation, she single-handedly won a case that brought millions of dollars to her firm. The partners shook her hand. They gave her a massive bonus. They threw a celebration in her honor and called her a rising star. That night, Sarah went home to her beautiful, empty apartment. She opened an expensive bottle of champagne, sat down on her designer couch, and looked out at the glittering Manhattan skyline stretching endlessly before her. She had everything. Every single thing she had been told would make her happy. And in the silence of that room, surrounded by her accomplishments, she felt absolutely nothing. A wave of emptiness so profound washed over her that she began to cry. She had climbed the highest mountain, only to find the peak shrouded in cold, thick fog. What Sarah experienced is what the Buddha called dukkha. This ancient word is often translated as suffering, but that translation is too narrow. Dukkha is more like a deep-seated unsatisfactoriness. A subtle, chronic dis-ease that pervades our existence, even in moments of great pleasure. It's the background static on the radio of your mind that you've learned to tune out but never stops humming. It's the quiet voice that asks, "Is this all there is?" even when everything looks perfect on the outside. It's the feeling that something is missing, even when you have everything. Here's what modern society never tells you. We are taught from childhood that the purpose of life is to be happy. We build everything around this premise. Get good grades so you can get a good job. Get a good job so you can buy nice things. Find a partner who will make you happy. Raise children who will bring you joy. We treat happiness like a finish line. We believe that if we can just arrange the external world correctly, get the right career, the right partner, the right house, the right vacation, then we will finally, permanently feel content. But it never works. Not really. Not for long. And it's not because we haven't tried hard enough. It's because we have fundamentally misunderstood the assignment. Think about it this way. Imagine you're sitting in a boat in the middle of a calm lake. You notice that water is seeping in through a small hole in the hull. Your instinct is immediate: grab a bucket and start bailing. You bail, and for a moment, the water level goes down. You feel relief. But soon, more water seeps in. So you bail faster. You get a bigger bucket. You work harder. But the water always returns. You spend your entire day, your entire life, bailing water. Why? Because you're so focused on the urgent task of bailing that you never stop to ask the obvious question: why is this boat leaking in the first place? Modern society tells us that the solution to our dissatisfaction is more bailing. More money. More likes. More achievements. More experiences. More pleasure. We call this the pursuit of happiness. We've made it a cultural mandate, a sacred duty. But the Buddha's insight, born from his own relentless investigation into the human mind 25 centuries ago, was radically different. He saw that the hole isn't in the boat. The hole is the boat. The very structure of the untrained human mind, with its endless craving, its constant grasping, its relentless wanting, is the source of the problem. Psychologists have a name for this. They call it the hedonic treadmill. Each of us has a baseline level of happiness, an emotional set point. When something good happens, a promotion, a new car, a vacation, we get a temporary boost. But very quickly, we adapt. Our expectations rise. The new car becomes just the car. The new salary becomes the new normal. And we're back on the treadmill, running just as fast for the next boost. There's a famous study that followed lottery winners. You'd think that winning millions would make you permanently happier. And the winners were, for a while. But within a year, their overall happiness levels had returned to exactly where they were before they won. The external circumstance changed dramatically, but the internal condition remained the same. This is the great misunderstanding at the heart of modern life. We spend our entire lives trying to fix the outside, hoping it will finally heal the inside. We believe the purpose of life is to arrange the external world so that we will feel permanently good. But the Buddha saw that this is an impossible task. The external world is, by its very nature, impermanent, unreliable, and completely beyond our control. Building your house on that shifting sand is a recipe for perpetual anxiety. Sarah learned this truth in her empty apartment. She had done everything right. She had climbed the ladder, checked the boxes, won the prizes. And she was miserable. The real purpose of life, the Buddha argued, is not to build a better sandcastle. It's to understand the nature of the sand and the tide. It's to find a place of peace within yourself that the waves cannot reach. But before we can find that place, we have to admit the uncomfortable truth that Sarah's tears revealed: the bucket has a hole. The boat is leaking. And no amount of frantic bailing will ever fill it. So if the boat is made of holes, what are the holes made of? If the bucket is leaking, what exactly is causing the leak? The Buddha was incredibly precise in his diagnosis. He didn't just say, life is suffering, and leave us there. He gave us a map, a user's manual for the human mind. He identified the engine of our dissatisfaction, and he called it tanha. This ancient word is often translated as craving or thirst. Imagine a man dying of thirst in a vast desert. The sun is scorching. His lips are cracked. He will do anything for water. He stumbles forward and sees a shimmering pool in the distance. Hope surges through him. He runs toward it with every last ounce of strength, only to find it was a mirage. He falls to his knees, devastated. But a few minutes later, he sees another shimmer. And he gets up and runs again. This is the human condition. We are all dying of a kind of spiritual thirst, and we spend our lives running after mirages, hoping the next one will finally quench us. The Buddha identified 3 distinct types of this thirst, 3 flavors of craving that keep us trapped on the treadmill. The first, and most obvious, is the craving for sense pleasures. This is the desire for pleasant sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and physical sensations. It's the drive for a good meal, a beautiful view, a pleasurable touch. There is nothing wrong with these experiences. The problem is not the pleasure itself. The problem is the craving. It's the insistent voice that says, I need another piece of chocolate. I need to check Instagram again. I need to buy that new jacket. It's the constant hum of wanting that plays in the background of our minds, never satisfied. This craving operates on a simple biological principle: diminishing returns. Think about the last time you ate something you love. The first bite is heaven. The second is good. The third is okay. By the 10th bite, you're stuffed and uncomfortable. The pleasure doesn't just fade, it turns into its opposite. The very thing we craved becomes a source of pain. But our mind forgets the 10th bite. It remembers only the first. And so it drives us to repeat the cycle, over and over, chasing a feeling that is, by its nature, fleeting. Think of a man addicted to a video game. The first hour is exciting. But by the 5th hour, he's not playing for fun anymore. He's playing to escape boredom, to silence the voice that whispers he's wasting his life. The pleasure has become a way to avoid pain. The game has become a cage. The second type of craving is more subtle. It's the craving for becoming. This is the thirst for a particular identity, for being someone. It's the drive to become a success, to be seen as important, to be loved and admired. This fuels our ambition. It's the desire to be the CEO, the perfect parent, the person who has it all figured out. It's the voice that says, if I could just become that person, then I'll finally be happy. We pour our lives into building an identity. We cling to our resumes, our titles, our relationship statuses. We believe they are us. But this self we are building is as impermanent as everything else. A market crash can wipe out a career. A scandal can destroy a reputation. A relationship can end. And when the identity we've built our house on crumbles, we crumble with it. This is the suffering of the retired executive who feels he has no purpose. He spent 40 years being the boss. Now that identity is gone, and he's left staring into a void. He was so focused on becoming, he never learned how to simply be. The third type is the flip side of the second. It's the craving for non-becoming. This is the thirst for annihilation, for escape. It's the desire to get rid of the unpleasant, to make difficult things disappear. It's the wish for painful feelings to just vanish. This is the craving that drives addiction and escapism. When we feel anxious, we crave the non-becoming of that anxiety. We reach for a drink, a pill, a distraction. We're not seeking pleasure, we're seeking relief. We want to annihilate the uncomfortable feeling. But this craving keeps us in a constant state of war with reality, always fighting against what is. You can see all three cravings at play in a single object, your smartphone. We crave the pleasure of a notification. That sense pleasure. We craft our online persona to project a certain image. That's craving for becoming. We scroll endlessly to escape boredom or loneliness. That's craving for non-becoming. That little device is a portable engine of tanha. The Buddha's diagnosis is liberating because it removes the mystery from our suffering. It's not a punishment. It's not bad luck. It's not a character flaw. It's a mechanical process. It's the default operating system of the untrained mind. And if it's a mechanical process, it can be understood. And if it can be understood, it can be changed. The Buddha didn't just point out the problem and walk away. He wasn't a philosopher content to leave us with an interesting puzzle. He was a physician of the spirit, a doctor of the human heart. And like any good doctor, he gave us a complete medical report. He called it the Four Noble Truths. Think of them as a doctor's diagnosis, prognosis, and treatment plan, all laid out with perfect clarity. The first noble truth is the diagnosis. There is dukkha. Life, as it is ordinarily lived, is permeated with unsatisfactoriness. Now, please understand this correctly. The Buddha was not a pessimist. He wasn't saying life is only misery and there is no joy. He was making a clear-eyed observation about the nature of existence. There is the obvious suffering of birth, sickness, aging, and death. None of us escape these. There is the suffering of getting what you don't want, illness, loss, criticism, pain. And there is the suffering of not getting what you do want, the promotion that never comes, the love that isn't returned, the dream that dies. But there is also a third layer, more subtle and pervasive. It's the suffering of change itself. Even the most sublime happiness is tinged with dukkha because we know, on some level, that it won't last. We're always bracing for the other shoe to drop. You're at a beautiful wedding, and a part of you knows it will end. You're holding a newborn baby, and a part of you knows they will grow up and leave. You're enjoying a perfect sunset, and even as you watch it, it's fading. This isn't pessimism. It's just honesty. It's seeing life without the filter of wishful thinking. The second noble truth is the cause of the disease. The origin of dukkha is craving, or tanha. It's the thirst we talked about earlier. But here's the crucial point. The Buddha wasn't saying that the things of the world cause our suffering. The sunset doesn't cause suffering. The promotion doesn't cause suffering. The delicious meal doesn't cause suffering. What causes suffering is our relationship to these things. It's our craving for them, our clinging to them, our desperate wish for them to stay forever. It's our aversion to their opposites, our frantic pushing away of anything unpleasant. The problem isn't the beautiful sunset that fades. The problem is our desperate wish for it to stay forever. The problem isn't the difficult colleague. The problem is our craving for them to be different, and our aversion to the feelings they trigger in us. Suffering is not in the event. Suffering is in our reaction to the event. Imagine you're walking through a field and you pick up a hot coal, thinking it's a treasure. You hold it tightly, trying to make it yours. Who gets burned? You do. That's craving. We go through life clutching these hot coals of desire and aversion, wondering why our hands are always blistered. We blame the coal. We blame the world. But the fire was in our hand all along. The third noble truth is the prognosis, and it's the most hopeful message ever spoken. There is a cure. The cessation of dukkha is possible. It is possible to extinguish the fire of craving. This state is called nibbana, or nirvana in Sanskrit. The word literally means, to blow out, like extinguishing a candle flame. When the fuel of craving is removed, the fire of suffering goes out. This is not a place you go to after you die. It's not a heaven in the sky. It's a state of mind that can be realized here and now, in this very life. It's the experience of perfect peace, unshakable freedom, a coolness in the heart that cannot be disturbed by the changing fortunes of life. It is the ultimate purpose of human existence. Think of the sky. Clouds can pass through it, storms, sunshine, rain, snow, hurricanes. But the sky itself is never affected. It remains vast, open, clear, and untouched. Our true nature is like that sky. Our thoughts and feelings, our successes and failures, our pleasures and pains, are just the weather passing through. The problem is we've forgotten we are the sky. We've mistaken ourselves for a single, fragile cloud, tossed about by every wind. The end of suffering is the realization that you are the sky. It's coming home to your true nature. The fourth noble truth is the prescription. It's the path leading to the end of suffering. The Buddha didn't just say, "Be free," and leave us to figure it out. He gave us a detailed, practical training manual. He called it the Noble Eightfold Path. It's not a list of beliefs you must accept on faith. It's a set of 8 interconnected practices to be cultivated in every aspect of your life. It's a holistic way of living that systematically uproots the 3 poisons of craving, aversion, and ignorance, and replaces them with wisdom, compassion, and freedom. This path is often symbolized by an 8-spoked wheel. The spokes are all connected. If one spoke is broken, the wheel can't turn. You can't just meditate and ignore how you speak to people. You can't just have wise views and neglect how you make your living. All the factors support each other. They are a complete training for the heart and mind. So here is the medical report in its simplest form. There is a disease, dukkha. There is a cause, craving. There is a prognosis. Freedom is possible. And there is a prescription, the Eightfold Path. This is not a philosophy to debate. It's a medicine to take. The question is not whether you believe in it. The question is whether you're willing to try it. So here we are. We have the map. We understand the disease, the cause, and the cure. But understanding alone isn't enough. You can read every medical textbook ever written, but if you never take the medicine, you won't get better. The Buddha gave us a practical path, a step-by-step training manual for the mind. It's called the Noble Eightfold Path. Let's walk through it together, not as ancient philosophy, but as a living guide for your modern life. The path is divided into 3 sections: wisdom, ethical conduct, and mental discipline. Think of them as 3 legs of a stool. If any leg is missing, the stool falls. The wisdom section, seeing clearly. The first 2 factors are about how we see the world. Right view is the foundation. It's our basic understanding of reality. Right view means seeing things as they truly are, not as we wish they were. It's accepting that life contains dukkha. It's understanding that our own craving is the cause. And it's having confidence that freedom is possible and there is a path to it. In practice, right view is the lens through which you interpret your experience. When you're stuck in traffic and late for a meeting, your habitual view might be, "This is a disaster. The universe is against me." Right view sees it differently, "This is unpleasant. My anger won't move the cars. It will only make me suffer. This too shall pass." Right view is seeing impermanence in everything. Look at your hand. It looks the same as yesterday, but cells have died and been replaced. It's a river of change. Everything you hold dear is in constant flux. Seeing this clearly doesn't make you depressed. It makes you wise. It helps you stop clinging to things that were never designed to be clung to. Right intention is the direction we choose to walk. If right view is the compass, right intention is the path we commit to following. The Buddha spoke of 3 types. First, the intention of renunciation. Letting go of attachment, choosing contentment over craving. Second, the intention of goodwill, wishing for yourself and all beings to be happy and at peace. Third, the intention of harmlessness, actively choosing not to cause suffering with your thoughts, words, or actions. Every time you choose kindness over anger, generosity over greed, patience over frustration, you are practicing right intention. The ethical conduct section, living with integrity. These next three factors are about our actions and words. They are the foundation of a peaceful life. Right speech is using your words as a force for healing, not harm. The Buddha gave 4 guidelines. Abstain from false speech, don't lie. Abstain from divisive speech, don't gossip or create conflict. Abstain from harsh speech, don't use cruel or angry language. Abstain from idle chatter, don't waste time on meaningless talk. In our digital age, right speech means the comment you choose to write, the email you send after you've calmed down, the gossip you choose not to pass on. Every word is a seed. It can plant a flower or a thorn. Right action is conducting ourselves with integrity. The core principles are simple. Abstain from taking life, respect all living beings. Abstain from taking what is not given, don't steal or cheat. Abstain from sexual misconduct, don't cause harm through your sexual behavior. Right action is the peace that comes from a clear conscience. When your actions are clean, your mind has a firm foundation for deeper practice. Right livelihood asks a profound question: how do you earn your living? Does your work contribute to suffering, or does it alleviate it? The Buddha mentioned 5 trades to avoid: weapons, living beings, meat production, intoxicants, and poisons. The principle is that your work should not be based on harming others. For most of us, it's not so clear-cut. Right livelihood is a call to reflect. If you work in marketing, are you promoting something useful or manipulating people? If you're in finance, are you helping people or exploiting them? It's about steering your professional life toward alignment with your values. The mental discipline section, training the mind. With wisdom and ethics as our foundation, we can now turn to the deepest practice. Right effort is the energy we apply to mental development. It has 4 parts. Prevent unwholesome states from arising. Abandon unwholesome states that have arisen. Cultivate wholesome states that have not yet arisen. Maintain wholesome states that have arisen. Think of your mind as a garden. Right effort is pulling weeds and watering flowers, every single day. Right mindfulness is the heart of meditation. It's being fully present, aware of where you are and what you're doing, without being lost in reaction. The Buddha taught 4 foundations. Mindfulness of the body, feeling your breath, your movements, your sensations. Mindfulness of feelings, noticing pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral experiences as they arise. Mindfulness of mind, observing your mental states without getting lost in them. Mindfulness of dhammas, seeing the truth of the teachings in your direct experience. Right concentration is the unification of the mind. It's the ability to focus deeply and calmly, free from distraction. In a world of constant noise and interruption, this is a superpower. When your mind is concentrated, it becomes a powerful tool for insight. These 8 factors are not steps to be mastered one at a time. They are interconnected spokes on a single wheel. They support each other. Ethics support concentration. Concentration deepens wisdom. Wisdom illuminates ethics. When all 8 are in motion, the will turns smoothly, carrying you toward freedom. So here we are at the end of our long, reflective journey. We've walked through the diagnosis and the cure. We've explored the architecture of our own dissatisfaction and the path that leads out of it. But understanding the map is not the same as walking the path. Knowing the recipe is not the same as eating the meal. So now we must ask, what does it actually look like to live this way? What happens when ordinary people, with ordinary lives, begin to practice this ancient wisdom? Let me tell you one final story. It's the story of a woman named Grace. Grace worked as a 911 dispatcher in a busy city. Her job was a constant barrage of other people's emergencies. Car accidents, heart attacks, house fires, violent crimes. She was trained to be calm, to give clear instructions, to be a pillar of stability in the midst of absolute chaos. And she was good at it. But at the end of every shift, she would go home and collapse. She was carrying the trauma of every call inside her own body. She was irritable with her family. She couldn't sleep. She drank too much wine just to quiet her mind. Grace didn't know anything about Buddhism. She had never heard of the Four Noble Truths or the Eightfold Path. But she was suffering, and she was desperate enough to try anything. A friend suggested she try mindfulness. Just 5 minutes a day, sitting quietly, watching her breath. She thought it was nonsense, but she tried it anyway. At first, it felt impossible. Her mind was a hurricane. Thoughts about the calls she had taken, fears about the next shift, regrets about things she could have done differently. She would sit for 5 minutes and feel like she had accomplished nothing. But she kept going. Day after day. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, something began to shift. She started to notice things she had never noticed before. She noticed that when a difficult call came in, her shoulders would tense up. She noticed that her mind would immediately start telling stories. This is too much. I can't handle this. This is never going to end. She noticed that she was carrying every call home with her, not because she had to, but because she didn't know how to let them go. She learned about right effort. She learned that she could choose not to dwell on the graphic images after her shift. She could gently, intentionally turn her attention elsewhere. She learned about right speech with herself. Instead of the harsh inner critic saying, "You should have handled that better," she began to offer herself kindness. That was a difficult call. You did your best. It's okay to feel this. She couldn't change her job. The emergencies kept coming. The suffering of others kept pouring into her ears. But something inside her was changing. She was developing the quality of the sky. The storms kept coming, but she was no longer the storm. She was the vast, open space in which the storm could pass through without destroying her. One night, she got a call from a little boy. He was home alone and heard a strange noise. He was terrified, his small voice trembling on the other end of the line. Grace's voice was the epitome of calm. She guided him to check the locks on the doors. She told him to go to the neighbor's house. She stayed on the line with him, her voice steady and warm, until he was safe. After she hung up, she sat in the quiet of the dispatch center. And she felt something she had never felt there before. Peace. Not the absence of difficulty. Not the absence of suffering. But a deep, unshakable peace in the midst of it all. She had been fully present. She had used her skills not to escape suffering, but to meet it with compassion and clarity. In that moment, she wasn't just a dispatcher. She was a living expression of the path. Her purpose wasn't to be happy. Her purpose was to be a conduit for wisdom and compassion in a world that desperately needs both. And in that purpose, she found a happiness far more profound than anything she had ever chased. This is the great unlearning. We have to unlearn the deeply ingrained habit of looking outside ourselves for fulfillment. We have to unlearn the belief that we are a solid, separate self that needs to be protected and enhanced. We have to unlearn the automatic reaction of grasping at pleasure and pushing away pain. This path is not a quick fix. It's not a three-step program to permanent bliss. It is a lifelong journey of cultivation. There will be days when you are mindful, kind, and concentrated. There will be days when you forget everything and get swept away by anger or craving. That's okay. The path is not about perfection. It's about practice. It's about gently, patiently, persistently returning to the path, again and again and again. The purpose of life, the Buddha tells us, is not to find the perfect house on the map. It is to become the cartographer. It is to understand the very nature of the territory, your own mind, so that you are no longer lost. It is to uproot the mechanism of suffering at its source. Grace didn't change her circumstances. She changed her relationship to them. And that made all the difference. The same is possible for you. Not by adding more to your life, but by letting go. Not by becoming someone new, but by remembering who you've always been. The light was always on. You just had your back to it. The path is the turning. The purpose is the seeing. And the freedom is the being. We've covered a lot of ground together. We've explored the diagnosis of dukkha, the mechanics of craving, the hope of the Four Noble Truths, and the practical steps of the Eightfold Path. We've walked with Sarah in her empty apartment, with Grace in her dispatch center, with others finding their way through the fog. But now comes the most important question of all: what does Monday morning look like? Because it's easy to feel inspired sitting here in this quiet moment, wrapped in these reflections. It's easy to nod along and think, yes, this makes sense. This is true. But the real test comes tomorrow, when you're stuck in traffic, when your child is screaming, when your boss is unreasonable, when the old familiar craving for distraction or escape rises up in you. What then? This is where the path becomes real. This is where philosophy becomes practice. The Buddha wasn't interested in abstract theories. He was interested in liberation. And liberation is won not in grand moments of insight, but in 1,000 small moments of choice. Let me tell you about a man named Daniel. Daniel was a high school teacher in a crowded urban school. He loved his students, but he hated the bureaucracy, the endless meetings, the lack of resources, the disrespect he often felt from administrators. Every Sunday evening, he would feel a knot form in his stomach, dreading the week ahead. By Wednesday, he was counting the days until Friday. He was living for the weekend, for the breaks, for the summers. His life had become a series of endurance tests punctuated by brief respites. He started reading about mindfulness, about the Buddha's teachings, not as a religious pursuit but as a way to survive. And he came across a simple phrase that changed everything: let go a little, and you will have a little peace. Let go a lot, and you will have a lot of peace. He realized he was carrying so much. He was carrying the weight of every past frustration with administrators. He was carrying the anxiety of every future deadline. He was carrying the resentment of every perceived slight. He was carrying the burden of wanting things to be different than they were. And none of this carrying was helping. It wasn't changing his circumstances. It was only exhausting him. So he began to practice letting go. Not in some dramatic, one-time event, but in small moments throughout the day. When he felt the familiar anger rise during a staff meeting, he would take a breath and silently say, "Letting go of this anger. It's not helping." When he caught himself replaying a past argument in his mind, he would gently bring his attention back to the present moment. When he felt the dread of Monday morning creeping in on Sunday evening, he would sit with that feeling, observe it, and let it pass through him instead of getting tangled in it. At first, it felt like a constant battle. His mind was so accustomed to holding on that letting go felt unnatural, almost like a betrayal. But slowly, something shifted. The knots in his stomach began to loosen. The weekends became less of a desperate escape and more of a genuine rest. He started to notice small joys he had been missing, the genuine curiosity of a student, the beauty of an autumn leaf outside his classroom window, the simple pleasure of a quiet cup of coffee before the school day began. He didn't change his job. The bureaucracy remained. The difficult colleagues remained. The lack of resources remained. But he was no longer adding his own suffering on top of these external difficulties. He was learning to meet each moment as it came, without carrying the weight of all the moments that came before or all the moments that might come after. This is the art of letting go. It's not about becoming passive or indifferent. It's about releasing the death grip of craving and aversion. It's about realizing that you have a choice in every moment. You can hold on, and you will suffer. Or you can let go, and you will be free. The path we've explored together is not a destination you arrive at. It's a muscle you build. Every time you choose patience over anger, you strengthen that muscle. Every time you notice a craving and choose not to act on it, you strengthen that muscle. Every time you bring your wandering mind back to the present moment, you strengthen that muscle. And over time, that muscle becomes your new default. Freedom becomes your new habit. The purpose of life, finally, is not to achieve some perfect state and then stop. The purpose is to live each moment with increasing awareness, kindness, and wisdom. It's to become a person who can meet whatever life brings with an open heart and a steady mind. It's to realize, in the deepest way, that you are not the storm. You are the sky. So as you go forward from this place, from this moment, carry this with you. When the craving rises, pause. When the anger flares, breathe. When the old habits pull at you, smile gently and choose again. The path is always here, waiting for you. One breath, one step, one moment at a time. We've walked a long road together. We've sat with Sarah in her empty apartment, with Grace in her dispatch center, with Daniel in his classroom. We've explored the ancient wisdom of the Buddha and translated it into the language of modern psychology. But there's one more teacher we haven't fully acknowledged. One more guide that is always with you, always available, always speaking. That teacher is your own ordinary life. The Buddha often said that the path is not somewhere else. It's not in a monastery, not in a cave, not in some distant future when you finally have time to meditate. The path is right here, in the middle of your messy, complicated, ordinary life. Every moment is a classroom. Every person is a teacher. Every difficulty is an invitation to wake up. Let me tell you about a man named Robert. Robert was a carpenter. He had been building things with his hands for over 40 years. He wasn't interested in philosophy or meditation. He didn't read self-help books or listen to podcasts. But Robert had a kind of wisdom that comes from a lifetime of paying attention. He knew things that can't be learned from words. One day, a young apprentice was working beside him, struggling with a piece of wood that kept splitting. The apprentice was getting frustrated, blaming the wood, blaming the tools, blaming everything except himself. Robert watched for a while, then walked over and said, "The wood isn't fighting you. It's telling you something. You're just not listening." The apprentice didn't understand. But Robert picked up the same piece of wood, examined it carefully, adjusted his technique, and made a perfect cut. He turned to the young man and said, "Everything has a grain. Wood has a grain. People have a grain. Life has a grain. You can fight against it, and you'll suffer. Or you can learn to see it and work with it. That's all wisdom is, learning to see the grain." Robert had never heard of the Buddha. He had never studied the Four Noble Truths. But he had discovered a fundamental truth through 40 years of working with his hands. Resistance causes suffering. Flow comes from alignment. When you fight reality, you lose every time. When you learn to see clearly and work with what is, things become possible that you never imagined. This is the path showing up in ordinary life. The Buddha called it mindfulness and right view. Robert called it reading the grain. The words are different. The truth is the same. Think about your own life. Where are you fighting the grain? Where are you insisting that things should be different than they are? Where are you pushing against reality, wondering why you're so exhausted? The answer might be in your relationships, wishing your partner would change, fighting against who they actually are. It might be in your work, resenting your responsibilities, dreaming of some other job instead of fully inhabiting this one. It might be in your own mind. Hating your anxiety, battling your depression, waging war against your own thoughts and feelings. The path invites you to stop fighting. Not to become passive or resigned, but to see clearly. To read the grain. To understand what is actually happening, right now, without the filter of your preferences and aversions. From that place of clear seeing, wise action becomes possible. You can't work with reality until you stop fighting it. I think of a woman named Helen who spent years in chronic pain after a car accident. She went to countless doctors, tried endless treatments, and grew increasingly frustrated and bitter. The pain was bad enough, but the suffering she added on top of it, the anger, the despair, the constant wish for things to be different, was worse. One day, a doctor said something that changed her life. He said, "I can't promise to take your pain away. But maybe we can work on your relationship with it." That was the beginning of her path. She started to practice being with the pain instead of fighting it. She learned to observe the sensations in her body without adding the story of, "This is terrible, this shouldn't be happening, I can't stand this." The physical pain remained, but the suffering around it began to dissolve. She found moments of peace she hadn't felt in years, not because the pain was gone, but because she had stopped fighting the grain. This is the invitation of your ordinary life. You don't need to go anywhere. You don't need to become anyone else. You just need to start paying attention. The next time you're stuck in traffic, notice the urge to fight it. The next time someone criticizes you, notice the defensive reaction. The next time you feel a craving arise, notice the pull. Just notice. That noticing is the beginning of wisdom. The Buddha said, "In the seen, there is only the seen. In the heard, there is only the heard." He was pointing to a way of experiencing life directly, without the layers of interpretation, judgment, and craving that we usually add. When you see a tree, just see the tree. Don't add, "I wish I had a tree like that in my yard." When you hear a criticism, just hear the words. Don't add the story of what it means about you as a person. This is simple, but it's not easy. It takes practice. But the practice is available in every moment. Your whole life is the classroom. Every ordinary moment is the lesson. And the teacher is always present, waiting for you to finally listen. We've traveled far together on this long, reflective journey. We've explored the depths of our own dissatisfaction and traced it back to its source. We've sat with the ancient wisdom of the Buddha and translated it into the language of our modern lives. We've walked the Eightfold Path step by step, and we've met ordinary people finding their way through extraordinary inner transformations. Now, at the end of this long road, we arrive at a simple question: what does freedom actually feel like? The Buddha described it as a coolness, a peace that cannot be shaken. He talked about it not as something you gain, but as something you uncover. Like a statue covered in mud, slowly washed clean until the original beauty is revealed. Like a sky that was always there, hidden behind the passing clouds. Freedom is not something new that you acquire. It's something old that you remember. Let me tell you about a woman named Patricia. Patricia was a nurse in a busy urban hospital. She had spent 30 years caring for others, often at the expense of caring for herself. She was approaching retirement, and everyone expected her to be happy, to finally relax, to enjoy the life she had worked so hard to build. But Patricia was terrified. For 30 years, her identity had been wrapped up in being a nurse. She was Patricia the caregiver. Without that role, who would she be? The question haunted her. She started reading about the Buddha's teachings, not out of spiritual curiosity, but out of desperation. She came across a phrase that stopped her cold: "You are not your job. You are not your roles. You are not the stories you tell about yourself. You are the awareness in which all of these appear." She didn't fully understand it at first. But she began to practice. She would sit quietly each morning, watching her thoughts, watching her fears about retirement, watching the stories her mind told about who she was and what she would become. And slowly, something shifted. She began to notice that there was a space between the thoughts. There was an awareness behind the stories. And that awareness felt calm, steady, untouched by the drama of her changing circumstances. The day of her retirement came. She turned in her badge, walked out of the hospital, and drove home. She expected to feel empty, lost, adrift. Instead, she felt something surprising. She felt light. She sat in her living room, looking out the window at the trees, and for the first time in decades, there was nowhere to go, nothing to do, no one to be. Just this moment. Just this breath. Just this presence. She realized that the freedom she had been seeking wasn't something she needed to find. It was something she needed to allow. It had been there all along, hidden beneath the layers of roles and responsibilities and stories. When those layers fell away, what remained was not a void. What remained was peace. This is the freedom the Buddha pointed to. It's not a freedom from life, from pain, from loss, from difficulty. That kind of freedom doesn't exist. Life will always bring its challenges. But there is another kind of freedom. It's a freedom in life. It's the ability to meet whatever comes with an open heart and a steady mind. It's the knowledge that you are not the waves on the surface. You are the deep ocean beneath. Think of your own life. Think of all the roles you play: parent, partner, employee, friend. Think of all the stories you tell yourself, about your past, your future, your worth, your failures. Now imagine what it would feel like to set all of that down for just one moment. Not to stop being a parent or a partner. Not to forget your past or ignore your future. Just to remember that underneath all of these roles and stories, there is something more fundamental. There is awareness itself. There is presence itself. There is you, before you became all of these things. That is your true home. That is the freedom that cannot be taken away. The Buddha called it nibbana. The poets call it peace. You can call it whatever you like. But it's available to you right now, in this very moment. As we come to the end of this long journey together, I want to leave you with this. The path is not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming real. It's not about escaping life. It's about fully inhabiting it. It's not about finding some distant, exotic happiness. It's about uncovering the peace that has been here all along, hidden beneath the noise of your own mind. You don't need to go anywhere. You don't need to become anyone else. You just need to pause, breathe, and remember what you've always known but somehow forgot. You are the sky. The clouds will come and go. The storms will pass. But the sky remains. May you be peaceful. May you be happy. May you be free. And may you carry this freedom not as a burden to protect, but as a gift to share with everyone you meet. The light was always on. You just had your back to it. Now, gently, kindly, you can turn around. We began this long, reflective journey with a simple question that has haunted humanity for centuries: what is the real purpose of life? The world shouts its answer from every screen and billboard. Be happy. Get more. Be more. Achieve more. Accumulate more. The world tells us that happiness is a destination, a finish line, a prize to be won if only we run fast enough and want badly enough. But somewhere deep inside, a quiet voice whispers a different truth. It whispers in the moments after the party ends, when the laughter fades and you're alone with yourself. It whispers in the silence between achievements, when the promotion is won and the celebration is over. It whispers the question Sarah heard in her empty apartment, surrounded by everything she thought she wanted: is this all there is? That voice is not your enemy. It's your teacher. It's the part of you that knows, even when the rest of you is distracted, that something is missing. But here's the secret the Buddha discovered 25 centuries ago. What's missing isn't something you need to find. It's something you need to uncover. It's not out there, waiting to be acquired. It's in here, waiting to be remembered. The purpose of life, the Buddha taught, is not to become happy. It's to become free. Free from the endless cycle of craving and aversion. Free from the tyranny of the endless wanting mind. Free from the suffering that comes from fighting reality at every turn. And in that freedom, something remarkable happens. Happiness arrives on its own, not as a goal you chased, but as a natural byproduct of a mind that has finally come home to itself. Think of a lamp that's been covered in dust. For years, you've been running around trying to find light. You've searched everywhere, convinced that light must be somewhere out there in the world. But all along, the lamp was sitting on the table in your own room, covered in the dust of your own forgetfulness. The path is the cleaning. The purpose is the seeing. And the light? The light was always on. We've walked this path together through 8 parts, through stories of ordinary people finding extraordinary freedom. Sarah in her empty apartment. Grace in her dispatch center. Daniel in his classroom. Robert with his wood. Helen with her pain. Patricia with her retirement. Each of them discovered the same truth in their own way. Freedom is not somewhere else. It's here. Peace is not something to achieve. It's something to allow. The Eightfold Path is simply the method for allowing it. Right view helps you see clearly. Right intention aligns your heart with truth. Right speech, right action, and right livelihood create a foundation of integrity that the mind can rest upon. Right effort gives you the energy to persist. Right mindfulness brings you into the present moment. Right concentration steadies the mind so it can see deeply. None of these are about becoming someone new. They're about uncovering who you've always been. They're about removing the layers of conditioning, habit, and forgetfulness that have obscured your true nature. They're about cleaning the dust from the lamp so the light can shine freely. As you go forward from this place, from this moment, carry this with you. The path is not a destination you'll reach someday. It's a practice you engage in right now. In this breath. In this step. In this moment of choosing patience over anger, kindness over judgment, presence over distraction. The next time you feel that familiar tug of craving, pause. The next time you feel anger rising, breathe. The next time you catch yourself lost in worry about the future or regret about the past, gently bring yourself back to now. This moment is all there ever is. And in this moment, freedom is always available. The Buddha's last words to his disciples were simple: all conditioned things are impermanent. Strive on with diligence. He wasn't telling them to strive for more wealth or more success. He was telling them to strive for awareness, for presence, for the freedom that comes from seeing clearly. So strive on, dear friend. Not with effort that tenses and strains, but with the gentle, persistent effort of a river flowing toward the sea. Not with the desperation of one who is lost, but with the confidence of one who knows the way home. The light was always on. You just had your back to it. Now, gently, kindly, you can turn around. Thank you for walking this path with me here at Monk's Moon Temple. May you be peaceful. May you be happy. May you be free.